Hello, folks. Hope you're enjoying your weekend up to now. Welcome to Vinyl Junkies. This is part 2 of my Detroit report. We're going to have fun this episode. We're not going to complain. We're going to talk about music and stories, and I can't wait to do it all. Part 1 happened on Friday. As you guys know, I left for Detroit early on Saturday for the Making Conference Vinyl Conference of Making Vinyl Conference in Detroit, which was happening last Monday and Tuesday. I went out on a Saturday, and oh, by the way, you know what? Before I even go into all of that, do you guys want to help me review the quality of some records? Watch episode 1 for it, but these are the records that we're giving away today, okay? So please, if you want to be a part of this and you want to help us review, share this and comment. Tell us which labels do you trust most, quality-wise? Music is music, right? But quality-wise, are there any go-to labels that you actually just trust that consistently get it right for you? And, you know, do you have labels that don't get it consistently right? Okay, these prizes, if you want to know more about them, came as a result of making vinyl, and they're totally random, but I'm going to send them to one of you guys if you share and comment your favorite stores and get the conversation going. Tom Waits, yeah, one of you is getting a Tom Waits reissue from Auntie. This gentleman that I don't know, but it's an amazing Stoughton jacket. It's a gentleman named Lonnie Holley Smith, and the record is on Jaguar. Really good record, but review it, all right? Then there's this guy. This came with a hype sticker by Henry Rollins saying he's the best thing since sliced bread. So Alex Cameron. And finally, the one that I really liked that I didn't know was Snail Mail Lush. I enjoyed this. You're going to get a copy of this. It's a Matador pressing, but they were all pressed at the same place. So because we talked about quality control the first time during the show last Friday, what we'll do is we'll continue that conversation and we'll make an amazing prize out of it for you. I'll get to Detroit, but you know, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind since I got back. It's the busiest I've ever been. All positive. It's been great. Okay. For those of you that want to know, you know, my impressions of what happened at Making Vinyl, the positive and the negative, I invite you to watch the first show, which was recorded last Friday. But, you know, I addressed some things and just to kind of like put it together, and felt that I had to take certain situations into my own hand to show people in the industry that, you know, we're not making this up. There's a quality control issue that we'd like to have addressed. At least we'd like to enter the conversation. So what I did was, I receive a lot of packages through Vinyl Junkies, obviously. They come through. So I just took the packages that came in just this week, and I got a package of 6 records, and 5 of those 6 were warped. So I made a video of it, and the video was watched 35,000 times. Then I did the episode on quality control on Friday, and that one's been watched over 75,000 times. Both of them combined have been shared dozens of times, and hundreds of comments, public comments for everybody to read are there. So you're able to be critical and see for yourself which ones make sense and which ones don't make sense. The discussion is there now, at least. And I put ad spend behind it because I do believe in this. I think it's important, and I'm going to put my brand, my words, my reputation, and my money where my mouth is. Why? Because the client matters. All of the issues need to be solved because the client matters. They're the ones who keep everything afloat. So that's the gist of it. What it is that I also did was Mitch Anderson of Black Circle Radio actually taped the whole thing live, my broadcast, our broadcast on, you know, the power of crate diggers. So I put that up on our site. If you go to our VJ page, you're going to be able to see for yourself, you know, and draw whatever conclusions you need to. Now, a few things happened that I really liked, okay? A bunch of comments, and you're just reflecting exactly what I said, but I got a lot of personal comments also. But let me point to just a few observations, if I may. First observation, from the customer side, from the client side, from those of you who buy records, the comments number in the hundreds. From the industry side, two responses, two. Folks, say what you want, but we got over 100,000 views, hundreds of comments, and 2 versus a couple of hundred. So the conversation isn't quite happening yet. And one of those was the person who sent the records, and it was a fantastic conversation, and that tells me we're headed there. And the other one was, you have the worst, you have the worst failure rate of anybody who receives vinyl. That was said as a joke, and I understand that it was said as a joke, but you know, it's kind of like, yeah, dude, what do you want me to tell you, man? These are the records that came in this week. I didn't just pull out my, I don't know what's warped in there and what's not. You understand? I find out when I put it on the turntable. So this discussion was had, and it's led to me thinking that further steps will be, should be taken, and I'm going to be putting my efforts behind that. Guys, we're going to get this solved, I promise. And I'm going to put together a forum. I'm in the middle of some initial discussions. We're going to make sure that we work together in concert, and those who want things to happen properly will join the conversation. I should tell you also that in terms of my personal standard here at Vinyl Junkies, folks, it's pretty simple. I live and die by my opinion, okay? That doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. Of course I make mistakes, but there's a discussion. A lot of this is storytelling as well. But for the most part, what it is that I say, I try to be as well thought out as possible. And if there are gaps in my information, I always welcome a dialogue, okay? The dialogue is what's important, because it's not important to be right. It's important to have the right answers. There's a very, very big difference. One involves ego and one doesn't. This is not an ego thing for me. This is a product. This is just, I want good records, man. I love good records. And with that, folks, I'm going to stop the entire quality thing and get to music. Do you guys want me to talk about music now? Can I talk about music? Sorry, folks. I'm going to get parched. So, Detroit. That's my second time there. And it was a very, very different experience. And I'm sure that if there's a third time, it'll be again a different experience. My first experience was going to the Making Vinyl conference last year. And people knew Vinyl Junkies, but it was still kind of like a close thing. So a lot of hustling on my part, big time hustling. I wanted to make sure that the brand got out. And I was proud of the fact that, you know, last month I got 79,000 views. In May, I didn't even have a show. So I was very much there, and it was a success. You know, this time around, I didn't do any of that. Most of what it is that I was trying to attempt to do was, again, go there and address what it is that I've heard from you. That experience can be, you know, you can watch Friday's show, the first part of Detroit, to find out what happened there and draw your own conclusions. Again, the point is a conversation. The point isn't to be right. And the second time around here, I took the time to go digging properly. So I got on the plane on Saturday, hung out on Saturday night with my buddy Travis from there that we've known since forever. He used to run a label called Hydrophonic Records, put out some of those early Bongzilla records, which I still have and cherish. So we kind of hung out, and I wasn't able to buy any records because everything was closed by the time I got there. But really the idea was to just have a few drinks and have a few smokes, and that's it, right? Dude gets lost. Okay, actually, let me tell you, the first thing that I usually look at when I go to a city specifically for music to get a feel, I try to take it kind of like musical anthropology. Every city, every region has its flavor. LA has its flavor. For me, one of the first places you see the flavor is the Uber rides. You know, the first taste is that Uber ride from the airport to your Airbnb. So in LA, I had a Russian guy with a lot of personality who was fucking rocking the Kenny G hard. So much so that when I listened to it a few days later, I almost bought a Kenny G album. Then I came to my senses. Okay, and we will know we've reached peak vinyl if we start seeing high quality 220 gram Kenny G reissues. That's peak vinyl. But so what happens in Detroit? The best thing in the world happens for Detroit. I love Detroit. I'm going to tell you why I love Detroit. First thing, I get into the Uber and I'm tired. You know how it is when you get off the plane, right? It's just, you just want to get where you need to go didn't really want to talk. I don't necessarily like to get chatty. And I work in the Uber very often on whatever I need to work. So this guy comes up and it's like, oh yeah, this guy is known for great conversation. Like, fuck. I don't want great conversation, so I'll just try to be polite and make sure that we don't engage in great conversation so that I can get shit done. Now, that's usually the case, but this gentleman comes in and he's got Sirius XM on, and the first thing that I hear, the first song that I hear when I step foot in Detroit, my friends, you know what it is? You know who it's from? It's from Cameo. All right. Now we're going somewhere. From there, it goes to the Gap Band. From there, it goes to some Aretha. And it's like, okay, some Ohio players. You know, so they're even just, it's a level beyond just AM radio here. And it's like, all right, I'm enjoying the sounds. But I still don't want to talk because I want to work, I'm tired, I'm grumpy. You know how it is when you fly, right? So the thing is, we had a huge conversation. Because what he said to me is, you know, after my first times just, you know, kind of making, you know, just not kind of like engaging too much, I was ready to take a nap. So he asks me, do you like music? Now, when a cab driver picks you up and there's some Cameo banging on the stereo, and then some Gap Band, and then some Aretha, and he asks you if you like music, you get over you're sleepy. And we wind up engaging in a conversation on how the dude used to hang out with all these great funk and soul and R&B bands back in Detroit, way back in the day, and his friends are all musicians, and he doesn't understand the industry right now. And we got into kind of like a little bit of a discussion on whether 50 Cent is worth anything or not. And I, of course, believe that everything is worth something. But all this is to say that the first thing that happened when I got into Detroit was music. Immediately, a discussion on music. And it would only get better from there. I loved it. Get down to my room, crash hard, fall asleep. Now, the record shopping is coming. That's the Sunday. I'll keep this part short. One thing that I try as much as possible to do when I visit a town is try to recreate all of those places that I know about that city or that country or whatever that I've heard over the records, okay? Because a lot of these places I've visited only through my record collection. All right, so, you know, Detroit's got a very, very deep musical history. From techno to, obviously, Motown, tons of R&B, hip-hop, and that's what I wanted the flavor for. So Travis comes and picked me up, and he's got a whole bunch of medicine, and what are we going to do? I don't fucking know what we're going to do, because it's not like I went there with any idea. I just went to hang, nothing more. Have a few drinks, nothing. You know, we wind up in the car during the entire time, and it's like, hey, I want to visit 8 Mile. Now, there's a police presence in Detroit. It's very, very obvious that there's a police presence in Detroit. Once I spent 3 days there, many sirens were heard. They were everywhere. A lot of the lights going off. So, you know, and when you come out of the airport, believe me, they let you know, we take your security very seriously. They're telling you in polite ways, do not fuck around. We got our eye on you. So we know that. I consider myself warned. Now, for me to want to... A decision I would have made differently, because I'm too old and it doesn't seem like a smart thing to do, is to ask somebody from there who is a complete pothead and clearly gives zero fucks because his car reeked. His truck reeked. To ask me to take me to 8 Mile. So this guy goes, hell yeah. So 10, 11 o'clock is there, and we're rolling down 8 Mile, and the fucking place is just, he's smoked out his cabin. And he's got his music loud, and the windows are rolled, and I'm like, I'm going to get arrested. And this was a horrible idea. And I was afraid. Not because people in Detroit are scary, but because I'm a dumbass and I'm asking for it. So all this is to say, the long and the short of it is where Eminem grew up is really nasty. It's fucking bombed out. It's true. The movie is true when it comes to that. And I'm a dumbass. And the weed is good. Very. Even very. So as we're driving, we pass White Castle. I never even thought about White Castle before Harold and Kumar come on. Harold and Kumar come on. I gotta know what White Castle is. I'm in a car. I gotta try that. Okay. Nasty. Nasty. Harold and Kumar lied. White Castle is... it's ass. Meat is not supposed to be gray. I'm not sure it's meat. And I got attitude. So my first culinary experience of Detroit was horrible. And that was Saturday. Go to bed. Sunday is where it gets interesting, right? Because now we're going to talk about records. I spoke 15 minutes, 16 minutes. I haven't spoken about records too much. Am I boring you yet? Let me see if there's any questions over here, and we'll take it from there. I hope you guys find this type of programming interesting, you know? So, I realized I forget something all the time. So I forgot my sweater this time to go to Detroit. So it's the second time in a row that I do one of these things where my first trip isn't the record store, but Target to buy something or other, and found this most excellent Black Panther shirt that looks like, you know what that logo looks like. From there, start doing my record shopping, and here's where I start picking up the records and we start going into the story. This is the good times. I walked off with this shirt, and I also, my second culinary delight that I have not tried, Detroit. I am very much into the condiments. I look very forward to sampling of your spicy brown mustard. 2 jars. I didn't bring beer home, so my hip factor dropped considerably there. Let's do this proper, okay? I visited a total of 5 record stores. What I'll do is I'll show you the stack from each of the 5 and tell you my impressions of all of them. Okay? How do we do that? First store, Hello Records. Best store of the place. I came home with that. Decent pile, right? As I'm going through the records, one thing that I noticed, there were certainly a few observations that bared noting. Small shop. Maybe, 15,000 records, 20 at the top. Strong selection. Not all over the place. A decent jazz section. You know, not ultra deep or anything like that, but a good jazz section. Believe me, you'll see what I pulled out of it. It's impressive. Okay. A very, very deep funk section. That I did expect and got exactly what I bargained for. Non-existent metal. I saw tons of 12-inchers, so... you know, for DJ culture and all of that, there was tons of it. I cannot speak to that because that's not what I go for. I did not dig that. Other than all of the 12-inchers, I dug out the entire store. I spent 2.5 hours in the store. You get to know a store quite well, especially when it's small. You observe a lot. One thing that I observed is just on a Sunday, a steady line of clientele. So many people coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And I met some friends there from Panama who wound up at the Making Vinyl conference, who were there specifically for that. So the first people I met for the Making Vinyl conference from Panama, my friends, hola mi amigos, bienvenido. I met them at Hello Records, and they were shopping, you know, and the owner wasn't there. I guess, you know, he doesn't work on a Sunday, but the person who works there, Jeremy, I got to see him do what he does for 2.5 hours as well. And this is everything you want a record store to be. This dude was an absolute machine during this entire time. He took the time to greet every single guest. He took the time to answer every single question. He took the time to engage in every conversation that was music related as much as possible, all the while doing cleaning records, grading records, placing records. He didn't stop. And everybody got a thank you. What more can you ask for? It was superb. From that experience, it was absolutely superb. Thank you, Jeremy. Everyone left happy. By the time those 2.5 hours were done, a good 36 people went in and out of that place. So that's a good sample size. Used records only. Cool. I was really happy with that because when I shop, I generally shop only for used records. So I started looking at some stuff and it's like, whoa, you know, he's got like an original Funkadelic on Westbound on the wall. And it's like, whoa, I want that. You know, it's like, it's probably going to be better than my Four Men with Beards reissue. So, you know, I took it off the wall. It's like $40. It's okay, man. I'm going to grab this. I knew that I was going to find those types of records and I was cool with it. But my dig was just started. This was just what was on the wall, right? As I go through, you know, I tell him, look, I'm a jazz guy. You know, it's like, do you have any Impulse? Do you have any CTIs? Yeah, you're going to find a bunch of CTI. It's just the jazz bins are there. But if you're really a jazz guy or anything, you might want to dig our dollar bins underneath. Dollar jazz. Dollar jazz is like, Christ. Okay. You don't find dollar jazz unless Zamfir is considered dollar jazz. And I don't have anything against Zamfir, but it doesn't usually exist unless the records are complete frisbees. So I had put together a good pile of good records, you know, that were what I'd expect to pay for good records. But something happened. I didn't wind up walking home with the Funkadelic. I'll tell you why. I go there usually, the way I pack is I pack a huge suitcase and I put a carry-on. I leave basically an empty carry-on so that I can, when I come home, I have an entire carry-on filled with wax. And I bring it in the plane with me so there's no damage. It can't get lost. My clothes get lost. I'm good with it. My records get lost and my laptop gets lost. I have a problem with it. So those come with me. And that's exactly what wound up happening. I wound up realizing real soon that I was going to be in that store for a long, long time. So I don't know what your method is when you shop at a record store, but my method is I grab a pile of what I want and then I whittle it down. Okay, so this is what I came home with. But the pile that I actually walked to the turntable to give a listen to was 3 times this size very, very easily. Now, I know that I can't sit at that turntable and just take up everything because there's other people to consider. That's not what I'm looking for when I go to the used places, depending on price. If it's their expensive places, if they're the more expensive records, then I really, really look for ticks, pops, and I expect a quality used record. But the thing was what was happening is I was blown away by the prices that I was coming out with. Look, this is an original Dizzy Gillespie on Verve. Cheapy bin. This is an original Charlie Parker hi-hat broadcast. Okay, this is the broadcast stuff. Charlie Parker really recorded for Dial and Savoy, and he did that strings record with Verve type of thing, but mostly Dial and Savoy. Okay, once you have that, you got the big Charlie Parker stuff. This is outside of that. Cheapy price. Boom. Hey, I'll take it immediately. You remember what I said about Charlie Parker on Dial? If you want the whole thing, these were pressed in the UK and even in Japan. I don't remember how many volumes. There's about 7 of them or something. I have like maybe 5 now, but I see this. What are you kidding? Cheapy bin. Cheapy bin. Now, at this point, when I'm starting to pull this stuff out of the cheapy bin, I'm beginning to think to myself, you know what? I'm not going to spend the $40 on something else. The cheap stuff here is so deep. It's so deep. I'm just going to go there. So that's exactly what I wound up doing. And I mean, listen, I'm not fucking around here. Original Donald Byrd on, Lou Donaldson on Blue Note. Lalo Schifrin, who's one of my favorite soundtrack guys. The one that I thought would be the best, okay? And this will get me into like a little bit of the quality and how I pick records. When I shop the dollar bins and when I shop the cheaper stuff, I don't expect the records to be perfect. I know that they might not be perfect, and I'm okay with that. I just want them, okay? So there's a different standard. But the thing is that when you walk into a dollar bin, and ask any of the jazz guys, now the jazz guys are the ones that are going to talk. You walk into a dollar bin, and you see an original Cannonball Adderley on Riverside, monocopy with the sticker on it. You take it home and you take your chances with this motherfucker. And to me, this was supposed to be this was my grail. This was the dollar grail, to find an original mono Cannonball Adderley from the 50s. Winds up that it skips a lot, and I'm still going to try cleaning it. But, you know, the entire pleasure for me was to be able to take the original shrink wrap and watch. Look, it's been on this record for 50 years, even more. Check. The greatest pleasure in my life is to do what's supposed to do with records. And now, my friends, I have a record with it could not be more pristine. So you take a chance with that no matter what. And I did. I'm happy I did. And yeah, there will be other stories like that. Another Blue Note, Bobby Humphrey. Now the thing with this is that I know that it's been sampled a bunch of times, but I never knew Bobby Humphrey really, except for the fact that, you know, she was sampled a lot, and the cover, I mean, the cover I've seen a million times. So I finally find a copy of it and take it home. And she's a flautist, so I help my daughter with her history homework, and she plays the flute in the band. So our little routine now is to spin a couple of records, and I play, you know, flute music for her, and we study history. So, all right, baby, we're gonna learn about Bobby Humphrey. I got 2 of these, not the same record, but same artist. This is another thing where this was in the dollar bins. It's scratched. It's scratched. But this, friends, is an original mono copy of Aretha Franklin's I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. This has respect on it. This has do right man, do right woman, do right man. It's one of the big ones. $1. Now, you remember what it is that I've said in past shows, how those old records, a lot of them are built like tanks, they're indestructible, and that's why I take a chance with these old records? Look, I don't know if we're going to be able to see this on camera, but if we can see this on camera, the first thing we'll see is the absolutely beautiful orange and plum label. These are the original Atlantic Plum labels, and any real collector is drooling right now. What they're not drooling about, and I don't think you'll be able to see it, is that it looks like a skating rink. Okay? There's scratches on it. It doesn't matter. I took it home. I didn't complain. Because I know what these records are made of. All of this quality control stuff. Can I tell you something? I swear I'm not lying on a stack of Bibles. This dollar mono record has scratches everywhere, and it's well enjoyed. Deborah and Hugo, I'm the one who has your record now. There have been many, many parties played to this record. But damn, it might look like a skating rink, but this record doesn't skip a single time. Not once. Not a single time. It's loud. It's original Atlantic mono. And in this case, I love the crackles and pops. You know why? Because those crackles and pops tell me that that record's been literally played 100 times, hundreds of times, and it's been enjoyed, and now it's mine. And the cost of admission for carrying on that tradition was $1. So this, to me, was an enormous find. To find Aretha Franklin in Detroit was the biggest thing I could. And on top of that, you know, I don't even have a copy of that record. So it's actually my first copy, and I think I'm never going to improve upon it. I'm never going to look for a cleaner copy. I think I want to keep playing this particular Aretha Franklin record and, you know, keep the party going for Hugo and Deborah. So this is my record. If you ever come to the record cave and I play you some Aretha, it's going to be noisy. It's going to be crackly and poppy, but it's going to be the real thing. As I was doing my tour you know, lots of churches in Detroit. Every church I passed, I kept thinking, I wonder if Aretha sang here. I wonder if Aretha sang here. All the time. Now, Aretha's father was a ministry, so I'm assuming most of her singing happened mostly in her father's ministry, but, you know, she was also known to be extremely generous and supportive of the churches around her, so I wonder how many of those churches Aretha actually sang in. Finding an original Little Beaver record is not something that you find every day. This is old school funk. This is deep funk. Original on Cat Records. All of this from Hello Records. All this is to say, Sonny Stitt, dude. When a record's called Satan, you take it home. Sonny Stitt's a badass saxophone player. You take it home. All this is, and this is all from one place, right? Now, here's where I got this thing, okay? When I buy records, I'm not looking for the white whales. I'm not looking for the thing that'll make my collection on Discogs jump to jillions of dollars. I don't care about that. I'm going as a musical archaeologist up to a certain point. Every record store for me is an archaeological dig. So it's not a question of whether this is worth $1 million and this is worth nothing. You know, it makes me think of, I forgot where it is that I saw it. Probably on one of those kind of like Antiques Road shows, but an English one, where this guy went there with some kind of sigil, okay? On your uniform, a military sigil from the Roman Empire. And he thought it was worth a fortune, right? And was really looking, he's like, hey, I'm going to sell my house once I sell this sigil. Roman Empire, big deal. And the guy told him, yeah, you know, it's really beautiful. It's an important piece, but actually these can be found relatively easily and they're everywhere. So to me, the fact that the guy didn't make $1 million on the sigil isn't what matters. The fact that this was an artifact of history dating back to the Roman Empire is what makes me want that. And it's with that kind of thing that I go to places and I shop dollar bins. I travel to shop dollar bins and I come out with Bob James records because I love Bob James. CTI, Tapan Z, always go for it. Why? Because Bob James records have a bunch of things going for them. The music is always top quality. Well orchestrated. The musicians are the top of the top. The jackets are always gatefold. The records always sound good. It's a full vinyl experience. There's something else with Bob James is that for those of you that think, you know, that vinyl is just whatever, you know what? Vinyl is art. You'll notice. Tell me if you notice a kind of theme as you go through this. This is the theme on this record is here, Buffalo Head Nickel. Right? You start seeing a little bit of a theme. Check this one. Look, I'll take that home for $1 every single day. And I collect them. So I came home with a few more. My Bob James collection is very close to finished now. And we're almost done with the stuff that I picked up from Hello, and then we'll move on, okay? But how about some more Dizzy Gillespie? Original, Verve. Ella Fitzgerald. Ella Fitzgerald. Phil Upchurch, who's an amazing guitarist on who recorded on the Cadet label, which is basically the rock, quote-unquote rock label from, you know, a subdivision label from Chess Records. The OJs. All this is to say that Hello Records is the motherfucking bomb. It's an amazing record store. If I give it full marks for everything. Jeremy was cleaning his records. The prices are fantastic. There's a listening table. It's small, but everybody makes do and is genuinely friendly. It imbues every aspect that you want for a record store, and I will return. I will absolutely return. If the stock rolls over regularly and they always have used stuff and they keep pricing it this way, I'll be there every single time. It's the best. So that's Hello Records. Go. It's worth it. If you're a metalhead, maybe it's not worth it. Metal section, that kind of thing. Punk. Nothing really there. So, I had a lot of conversations while I was there. You know, that was fun. So, as people were talking about music, I was engaging in the conversation also, trying to get a feel for, you know, for the record stores in the city. And one guy who's been DJing there for a long time, you know, told me, hey, look, you know, if you want jazz, you should go to this other place, Good People Records. So I was planning, it got late. I spent too much time in one store, and I was supposed to go to another big store. But anyway, he tells me, go Good People Records. Now at this point, I find my first digging buddy. Hessler and me went to the show. Hold on, I'm just going to get the next pile, okay? Hessler and me have been working together. We've been doing shows together, and I think we've developed just a genuine admiration for each other, and we like working with each other. It's fun, but we've always worked. He's worked from Colorado, and I've worked from Montreal, and this time we were going to hang out, and he got in early specifically because he wanted to dig with me. I would do a dig anytime with anybody. The thing is that I don't have the patience for the logistics. If you want me in your city, if I come to your city and you want to come digging with me, I don't care if it's 1 or 100 people. I'm going to go digging by myself. You want to join me? I promise. We're going to talk about records. So Matt joins me, and we wind up meeting at Good People Records, which is kind of like this little place in a strip mall, a combination of old and new. Prices were okay. It was all right, but not something that I found too deep. But the thing is that if it was just on used stack, I would say it was not deep enough. But it was very, very well buttressed by used stuff that was new records that was reasonably priced. And the piles, this is important when it comes to record stores, the piles were separated between new and used. One thing I can't stand when I walk into a record store is when the new stuff and the used stuff are put together, because my priority every time is the used stuff, every time. So you're just making my job harder. You're just making my visit more laborious by throwing new stuff. If I wanted new stuff, I'd go to that pile. All right, so, they were saying that stats show that the vast majority of the market isn't even stuff that gets scanned on SoundScan. It's stuff it's the used stuff. Yeah, no doubt about it. So I don't find a ton of stuff, but I find some stuff. There wasn't much there for me, but the stuff I found, however, look, this is a soundtrack called Tough Guys, and Isaac Hayes not only does the soundtrack, and actually Fred Williamson is on this. He's the guy who played Black Caesar during the 70s blaxploitation movie. That Black Caesar was a soundtrack done by James Brown. So you start seeing ins and outs, all my favorite soul and funk artists getting into the blaxploitation genre. Now, in the case of Isaac Hayes, handsome man, he had style, he had sway. So they asked him to make a few movies. As far as I know, and I could absolutely be wrong, but the two that pop up to mind when it comes to Isaac Hayes that he was in and he played like an important role was this one here, Three Tough Guys, and another one called Truck Turner. And I don't have Truck Turner. I'm still looking for Truck Turner, but I found one of the other ones, and I buy all blaxploitation, all of it. All of it. If I find it, I buy it, because I enjoy that period, and it's not just about the music, it's about just filling every little piece of information. My favorite music is 65 to 75, mostly black, so trying to fill little pieces of that story as much as possible. Every artifact helps, every anecdote helps. Okay, it helps me put together something that's hopefully entertaining. So we're going to go back to Bob James, but this time it wasn't for me. One thing that I really, really love doing, actually here, before we go into that, one thing that I really, really love doing is I love digging with people, because I kind of always have an idea of what kind of music they like, and I like putting a record in their hands that they wouldn't have found if it wasn't for me. Just putting something, either stretching their horizon or just take a chance on this. I know you don't know it, but trust me on this. Take a chance, okay? I'll go into that. But he brought this over. Now, as much as we were talking about quality control with new records, one thing that I can scream from the rooftops is that Org Music and Vinyl Me Please do records right. So when he brings me a exclusive pressing of Art Ensemble of Chicago, and it's pressed by Org Music, and it's pressed at Palace, a lot of check marks are marked off that tell me I'm going to get a quality experience. So I was chuffed, because I've been buying Art Ensemble of Chicago for ages, and I'm genuinely loving the fact that all of this stuff comes out. Fantasy, big, no matter which label they're recorded for. Very big Lester Bowie fan, very big Fontella Bass fan. But getting to my story, one thing you can expect if you ever dig with me, and those of you that are watching who have dug with me will know, don't be surprised if I dig out a record and I put it in your hands and say, you want to check this out. Generally speaking, I do that for a few reasons. Number one, because listen, that's the discussion, that's the passion, that's the entire point of the crate digging. But discovering new music, there's nothing better. And it's got to start somewhere. So just being able to do that as part of the dig, for me, gives it meaning. And I have a couple of go-to records. And I always go to those records. And you guys, if you're watching, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you pop up. But I've put some records in your hands and you've gone on to buy more. Because I kind of knew you'd like this based on what I knew that you were posting before. So this was one of them. Bob James. I always tell Bob James this one in particular because it contains... you know, for those of a certain vintage, 30s, 40s, who used to watch Taxi with Andy Kaufman, you'll remember the theme song. And this one contains the theme song to Taxi. And continuing always with the theme, this one's just a big old football. Right, so I picked a copy of this up, and I picked it up at Hello Records. Not for me, but straight up for Hessler, because you got to try it. And I kind of know where he goes. I know he likes his funk. I know he leans where he leans. You know, I know him by now. We've been working a while. I see a copy of this in the dollar bins. In the dollar bins. Now look, I think when you see a record that looks like this, and he's fabulous, admit that. Look at that. Look at him just casually slinging his instrument over his shoulder, over his naked shoulder, and you flip it over. He's even got a little smile. It's like, oh, I know what's going on. You know what's going to happen when you put this record on. So, what I like most about this is usually when you put it in someone's hand and they see this, it's like, good God, what the hell did you just give me? And it's like, dude, sexy time music. And then I point out even better things. Let's go a step further, Matt. I'll tell you why you're the luckiest man in the world that I put this in your hands. When you open the jacket up, you see? I don't know if you see it, but this is a velvet image of a couple making sweet, sweet love. And and if you touch it, it provides a very nice experience. It's velvet. So you get to touch the couple as they are in the throes of passion as you spin your record. And, you know, Herbie Hancock, Herbie Man, he's suggestive, but he's still coy because the heads are cut off, so you don't really know. You ask yourself as these songs are playing, Herbie, you rascal, while you're playing Push Push. In the middle, is that you doing the push push? Is that you, Herbie? The flute suggests that it may very well be you. So, that, friends, is worth $1. And I forced it. I hoisted it upon Hessler, and I told him, you gotta bring this home. And he wasn't sure. But if he and his wife have a few drinks, and they accept the humor in it, and they make sweet love, friends, my job is done, and that's why you should dig with me. Now, I love Hessler, so I have to go a little further, and here we go into the greatest hits, because a few of you out there, shout it out if you're the guys who do it, but I've put a few of these records in your hands. One thing that I do all the time is, and I do, these are the records that I pick out for reasons, okay? Deodato. I've put Deodato records in people's hands on a very regular basis, and these are the ones that I pull out because these are the ones that you'll see in stores all the time. All the time. And you'll see them in the cheapie bins. So a lot of people will see that and think to themselves, hey, you know what? Can't be much. It's a cheap record. Probably garbage. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. There's a million of these. They're cheap. They're on CTI. The musicianship is fucking brilliant. And if you don't know it, you need to dig them out. So I know that whenever it is that I dig one of these things out, chances are if you like funk and you like hip-hop and you like soul, you like 70s, and you don't know who Deodato is, it's going to cost me $1 or $2 to tell you who Deodato is, and I know that I can change your life with it. I do that with Grover Washington Jr. I do that with a couple of artists. Okay? Cheap and good. Deodato fits that perfectly. Cheap and good. So, I'm pretty sure this is the one I put in his hands. Solo Records and Tapes. Pulled it out. It cost $1. And it's like, look, I know it's only $1, but please bring this record home. Tell me what you think of it. And the reason I knew he would like it, and I'm curious because he hasn't told me he liked it, but I just look at the Vinyl Me Please and the stuff that they're reissuing, and a lot of the stuff that they're reissuing in terms of a funk vibe, a lot of the funk vibe can be found in here, in these Deodato records that can be found for nothing. So that's one of my go-to records that I put in people's hands. Stuff like Walter Carlos or Wendy Carlos, if you're kind of like more on the weird electronic stuff, that's the other stuff I always put in people's hands. And I usually follow it with a story like, you know what? Wendy Walter Carlos was the first transgender person who wasn't transgender when she won a Grammy Award, but he was a he when he won the Grammy Award, but he became a she. So officially, Walter Wendy Carlos is the first transgender Grammy Award winner way back in the 60s. So, you know, I throw in that story so that I can add something. You throw that story in with $2-3, you give them the record, they listen to something, you leave them with an experience that they carry with them. And if they like the experience enough, they keep buying. And to me, that's probably the best way to sell a record. The passion. The absolute love of music, the sharing of stories, the actual passing of one record physically to the other here, you know. I touched the same record that I gave to Hessler. He's going to take it home, he's going to put it on his turntable, and now he's going to take that experience and the memories of us hanging out and going to the restaurant and digging them out and everything, and he's going to play them. Okay? So, this was my big record that came out of Good People Records. You guys know me. Look back there. You see a lot of orange and black. I collect orange and black. I am sold. I'm absolutely planning to collect every single yellow and black I can find. I want the entire Impulse catalog, and it's because I read a lot about it. It's my favorite catalog. The quality has changed over the years in terms of new pressings, but it's still consistent. And the old stuff is absolutely can't miss. Okay, so I do collect it, and look, they simply look gorgeous on your shelves. They look gorgeous, spine porn. So I found this, and what winds up happening is I often don't know if I have it or not, because I have a lot of them, but I take them home anyway because I tell myself if it's a record that I have, I'll just give it to someone else, or I'll trade it or whatever. Boom, I didn't have it. This is a perfect copy of a record by saxophonist Sonny Stitt, so my second Sonny Stitt record, and Paul Gonsalves. Paul Gonsalves is somebody I discovered through Duke Ellington, this concert that he put on in '65 live at Newport, where he committed one of the greatest saxophone solos I could ever think of, and there's this legendary story behind it. And I won't get into it because it'll be too long, but I will eventually get into the story of Paul Gonsalves and how Duke Ellington's career nearly died, and that one concert at Newport just completely fired everything up. And the second big one, this was the third record store that we went to, me and Hessler, but this was just a honey, all right? I have this record already. It's one rule, anybody that knows anything about me when it comes to jazz, there's the rule of Gabor Szabo. If you see a Gabor Szabo record, you buy the Gabor Szabo record because there's no one that sounds like him, and he's a genius, and they're all good. I had this record already. This was reissued by Light in the Attic a while ago, and I mean, it's perfect. The record is perfect, but when I have a chance to get an original, I have to pick it up. So 2 more orange and black were added to the piles. This one was courtesy of Solo Records and Tapes, which was another type of strip mall type of thing, really mom and pop, run by two ladies in their 60s, and the prices were a little bit there and a little bit here. They were fine. It was all mostly used stuff, but they had some stuff that was new. Some of the stuff was outrageously priced, but you don't want to judge only for that. Sometimes when the prices are too outrageously priced, that's where it is that you want to dig, because that tells you that they don't know how to price their records, or they're not doing, there's not much experience there. So when you find this for $8 or $9, you pick it up and it's beautiful. You did well. Not because it's $1,000 record. That's not the point. It's because if you get yourself a good original Impulse pressing, first pressing for that much, even if Discogs tells you it's a $2 record, it doesn't matter. Fuck that. It's a good record. That's what matters. One of the big ones for me, I am constantly trying to put together my 80s collection and finding Lick It Up in the dollar bins. I know you don't believe this, folks, but at one time, the only thing that would get me dates when I was young was not my sparkling personality, but the fact that I looked a little bit. I resembled an unmasked Paul Stanley. I was thinner. I didn't have the beard. I had the hair. Didn't have the personality. And I loved him. So, this I will forever stand behind, and I love the record. If you have not seen the video to Lick It Up, see the video to Lick It Up, because it's glorious in a car crash kind of way. We're still on store 3, right? Store 4 and 5 are going to go a lot faster. If we go to store 3, this is what I love about going to those little mom and pop shops. You find these types of records. Folks, if you want weird, you want really well produced, really well orchestrated, fantastic sounding records, what you do is you pick up every single Martin Denny record you can. Because you know you're going to get an amazing record with amazing covers. They're going to sound good, they're going to be weird, and they're going to fit that particular spot. You know, that kind of like martini spot that it's just, for what it is, it's perfect. A lot of people might think it's cheese. I think that's the idea. But this is cocktail music of the highest quality. And there's a dichotomy that exists when you try to buy this kind of stuff in record stores, because you'll generally find it in two different camps. You'll find it either in the dollar bins, because this stuff has been dollar bin fodder for the longest time, or there's also been a good renaissance of people trying to dig up this stuff. So all of a sudden you'll find people trying to jack the prices up, and you got to pay a whole lot. Like I saw one in when I was in LA, and I saw it, and you know there was no price on it. But when I see a Martin Denny record, I kind of know that it's probably a cheapie. You know, it's like, or at least I expect it. I know the other side, but the guy wanted $25 for it, and I said no, I'm not interested. You know, and it's like, you know, what price would you be comfortable paying? And it's like, I didn't even give him a price, because it's like, you want $25 for it, so I won't insult you. Okay. But my copies cost me $3, and there were 5 or 6 of them. And I can tell you that all 5 or 6 of those disappeared because Hessler took the other ones. I had the other ones already, but Hessler took the ones that I didn't. So I'm curious to see what he thinks about it. And I told him, fix yourself a cocktail. Fix yourself something that you really like, and make time for these records. These records are going to provide that vinyl experience. They're absolutely gorgeous. Really happy to have them. And finally, at that little record store, I found a grail. You know, the type of record you'd expect in almost any catalog, rock catalog, but the Allman Brothers' perhaps greatest album, at least in my opinion, Live at Fillmore East, is the one album. And it's been not a white whale, not because it's hard to find, but it's just one of those records I never found. I never did. And there's the gatefold. Now, look, let's face it, these old records, when you're buying old records of a certain vintage, of certain bands, Skinner, a whole bunch of them, joints were rolled on them. They smell a little funny. You might see some cuts on them. Things happen when these records are being played. So I have over the years seen reissues, but I didn't want a reissue, even though I knew, you know, I'd get a clean record. I didn't want a reissue. I wanted a record with stank on it. I wanted a record that had lived through a couple of these sessions, because I'm going to have a good time with it too. And I finally found it. I finally have Allman Brothers. So that, friends, was Hello Records, and that was the end of our 2 record stores with Hessler. He missed the big one, which was Hello Records. Hello Records was the best one. Good People Records was good. Some new, some old. Selection was all right. The prices were fair. The last store, Solo Records and Tapes, some of the gems I found in there were amazing. The prices were inconsistent, which tells me that, you know, these are not people who I don't know. It's just the prices were inconsistent, but I was very happy with them. Okay. Go out to dinner. Look, there's this restaurant. Yelp reviews in Detroit, Mario's. Get a little Italian, you figure it's safe, right? Who doesn't like a bit of pasta? Who doesn't like a bit of veal? Yelp reviews all over the place, amazing. Plus they got this food truck that they do, right? And what they do is they feed poor people. There's a lot of poor people in Detroit, lots of homeless people. It's fucking devastating. But the logo on the truck, as they make these food deliveries to people who need them, is we feed the entire mob. So they had that going for them. But, you know, a serious Italian restaurant, you wonder about that. We go in, the food was fucking garbage. Complete garbage. It's just, the sauce was very strictly Chef Boyardee. Chef Boyardee! 99 cents, you fucking crack the thing open. That's what it tasted like. $44. Why? Because you're giving me a minestrone at the beginning. Because you're giving me a little plate with fucking olives on. Hey, $45 for fucking Chef Boyardee. It's bad. The restaurant was horrible. It was horrible. Now, the guy, he had his nose like this, you know, he's looked very Italian. Just sees me coming in. I realize I'm disheveled. I'm not an attractive man. I look like I might need a couple of dollars to help me out. So he gives me this look. And he starts talking to me. And at that point, it's like I already know. I can read this. So I pull out my fucking Neapolitan. I pull out my Italian. Hey, come stai, paisa? So he looks at me like this. Che c'è, signor? Parlo italiano o no? This homeless person speaks Italian. Suddenly he gets quiet. No poco. Just a little bit. So I ate Chef Boyardee with a guy that took me to my table that looked like he belonged on The Sopranos and looked at me like I was homeless. But I spoke Italian and he didn't. And that's just fun to say. So that was Sunday. Making vinyl. Lots of positive takeaways as well as negative takeaways. Like I said, I urge you to watch part 1 if you want more in-depth on that. But there were so many good giveaways. And I can tell you, you know what? You know how it is that I mentioned at the beginning of the show that there were hundreds, literally hundreds of comments that came from the programming on Friday and the Warped record. Dozens of shares. And only 2 were industry people and everybody else was clients. The people who actually responded to my call to action on that Monday saying I want to have a conversation were the people that you would expect not to respond as much as possible. Okay. People that were the furthest removed from the customer. As I was hearing this line all the time of, hey, you know what? We take care of the carburetors. Once we make the carburetors, we make the very best carburetors. But once we put them in the car, we don't know where it gets fucked up. We can't do anything. Well, anyway. So got all of that, right? This guy, if you had to look at the whole thing, I spent 2 hours with these 2 dudes from Sweden that represent a company that makes pressing they make pressing machines, okay? They make the machines that actually press your records. Old, Tool X Alpha. These guys used to make they're a Swedish company. Chances are, if you collect Deutsche Grammophon, classical records, you know what they are, you know that it's the highest standard. They got pressed on a Tool X Alpha for the most part. Now, I never paid attention to this guy because he's far removed from my experience. I'm not his client. He's not my client. He makes machines and he's trying to sell them to people who are trying to put plants together. And if anything, look, I love Swedes. One of my favorite hockey players is Mats Sundin. Lee Hazelwood spent a good amount of time in Sweden. I love Sweden. And all I can remember is, I got this thing with accents, all I can remember is him talking on stage at Tool X Alpha. And for the last year, every time I think of Tool X Alpha, I can't say it without a Swedish accent. So it's like, Tool X Alpha, Tool X Alpha. And I never thought that my relationship with Tool X Alpha would ever go any further, but it did. Because after Monday was over, we go to this little bar. I meet up with Hessler and a bunch of people at this pinball bar that they're doing, and it was way noisy, and I was fucking grumpy at that point. Long day, a lot of discussions, and I didn't want to hear pinballs. I didn't want to see. I wanted to chill. So so it's like, okay, we're gonna take an Uber. We're gonna go to this bar. I forgot, PJ's. I think the place was called PJ's Ale House, and it's right. He was supposedly the Vinyl Me Please people rented their Airbnb right on top, and okay. Again, noisy. There was some blues being played on one end, the football player on the other end. The guy, the bartender, look like a skinny, kind of like ratty version of that dude on that show, The Deuce, with the mustache. Yeah, sorry, I don't remember the name of the actor. Very popular actor. And he's screaming at the television as the game is going on. So I like to observe when it comes to this. I don't get excited about things like that as much, So watching people scream at the ball being dropped was fun. It was fun. But the most interesting place about this PJ's place was the record store. Now, Matt tells me, yeah, dude, we got to go there. There's this little place downstairs called Underground Records, and it's almost not a record store, he tells me. It's just there's got to be 200 records in there and not more. Now, when you tell me there's only 200 records, to me, that's not a record store for sure. That's just a pile of records. But at this point, I'm tired. I'm miserable. The VMP boys go, I don't know, they went to the casino or something. That's not my scene. So I'm getting ready to leave at this point. I'm tired. I'm done. But look, if there's a basement going downstairs and it looks kind of like iffy and there's a sign that says Underground Records and then there's another sign that says, don't worry, we are open, I gotta go check because you never know what you're gonna find in those piles. So I go down the stairs, and as you're going there, you can see the kegs being set up. It's a basement. But eventually you get to this little record nook and there's a few records. And the most ridiculous thing was happening in there because I swear I'm not lying to you, but I saw the Lionel Richie records dancing on the ceiling being sold for $26. And these absolutely fucking ridiculous prices. And it's like, okay, well, this person has zero clue what they're doing. They have zero. Now, you see, the thing is that that's not a bad thing. Because if they got zero clues on what they're doing for the bad stuff, that's also the case for the good stuff. You find gems in there because they don't know gems. So I found gems. I found 2 gems. I couldn't find the other one. Okay, I found another one, but this, I guess, was my biggest takeaway. This band called Lucifer's Friends. It's a rock band that's kind of like part kind of like proto-metal and part kind of like the arena rock with the weird voice. It's quite an interesting band. Their first album is really the one that's most important, the Lucifer's Friends, and the cover there's this black and white cover that's kind of like 2 creepy characters that evoke this image. For those of you that watch movies, have you ever seen Fritz Lang's M? It kind of evokes those types of images. Or if you've seen Nosferatu, the what's the name of that director? The Klaus Kinski. Klaus Kinski plays Dracula, and the director Werner Herzog, that's the guy, right? So it kind of gives that kind of vibe. That first record is the one that I want. That's really the grail for me. I haven't found it, but I'm going to take a chance on any Lucifer's Friends because I want to know. Yeah, so I was really happy to find it. And Underground Records wound up getting a big old thumbs up simply because it was there. I enjoyed it, and I still found a dig. Tuesday comes around. The stories are almost over, guys. I'm almost done. Last store. Third Man. Now, Third Man does things right. Records that come off the plant at Third Man, done right. New plants, they care, quality control. It's good. The thing is that there's no used records. It's all new. And for the most part, Third Man Records is mostly a tourist spot and boutique. Okay, so they'll sell the entire Third Man's catalog, which I have great respect for. They don't put catalog out of print. They print it all, so the music is always accessible. It's reasonably priced. I like it. But the thing is you go to Third Man, you get Third Man. You're going to get Third Man everything. Third Man condoms, maybe. I don't know. Didn't look. But lots of Third Man. Books, T-shirts, coffee cups, name it. It's there. And it's beautiful, and a lot of people go through, and they did a ton to revitalize the area. So, Jack White, I don't care whatever anyone has to say. We owe, all of us, the entire industry owes a debt of gratitude for the way it is that they do things. But again, from a record store perspective, where you're buying records, you're going to buy what Third Man presses. They have a selection of records that were pressed for other labels, but pressed on the third man presses. That's there too. And there's a selection of local stuff. But for the most part, as a digger, there wasn't much to find for me because I have what I want. Yeah, but I did come away with this, which is the Sleep 12-inch. And I wanted it, so picked it up. And it was interesting as I picked this up because I was looking and I wasn't able to find the sleep section. So I asked a young lady there, hey, where are the sleep records? So right there. So she takes both of them out. It's like, okay, well, this is, what's that first album called? The Sciences? This is The Sciences. If you want that, I said, no, I have that one. Thank you. And she goes, this is Leagues Beneath. This is the new 12-inch, but I want to tell you ahead of time, I'm sorry. And she begins to apologize for the fact that she's not giving me the colored vinyl because, unfortunately, the colored vinyl sold out a lot fast, sold out very quickly, so it's not available. But apologetic. I don't buy colors. I buy records. And then she gives me the sales pitch. Was like, but you know what? If you want my opinion, the etching on side 2 looks way better on black than it does on whatever color the color ones were. Now, of course, if you go online, the one everyone wants is the color one because the collector aspect of vinyl is just there and it's never going to go away. For me, what it is that my takeaway was, you're explaining to me why you're giving me a black record? I'm buying music, man. I'm buying an article. I'm buying an artifact. And I'm buying it physically because it contributes towards my experience. But a color is nice. But, the level of apology for them having run out of a colored version of the colored variant spoke directly to the collector. All this is to say that that's a big part of vinyl right now. And that, guys, is my trip to Detroit, man. 5 record stores. I came back with, 51 records, 52 records? And I missed a bunch of stores, and I promise I'm going to go back, and I promise I'm going to dig those out. One place that I'm absolutely going... Hello Records is a regular stop. And if they get thousands of dollars of business from this, then they deserve every last bit of it. I just hope they have enough used material to just keep the stocks going because fantastic. And I had a good time. And there we go, folks. Can you believe it? We talked about music. Do you enjoy the show? Do you want to hear me complain? Watch part 1. Have your say. You want to win some records? Of course you want to win some records, you guys. Fucking guys. Everyone wants free records. Everyone wants what's free. These records are being given away, okay? Here, look. Tom Waits. You want this Tom Waits record? Yes, you do. This is Snail Mail. This blah, blah, blah. How about this blah, blah, blah? 4 records. 4 records. If you're going to help me with the quality control and you're willing to really take the time to work with me to check them out, I'm going to choose one of you to help me out. In the meanwhile, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. As soon as I get off this show, I'm going to go into the comment section and see if I can interact with you guys. You guys can tell me, any takeaways. I'm there to just nerd out and have fun. This is fun. Oh, and if you want to buy a new record, this came in the mail. You know how much I talked about the inconsistency of records? I received 2 copies of this. This is the box set version, but also the regular version. And truthfully, I was worried because it's like, I didn't want to be the guy to say that it wasn't good. It just goes to show you that quality control is 1000% there. This here, released by the Prince Estate, is flawless. Everything you want from the vinyl experience is here. And the premium that you pay for this, if you're comfortable with it, I promise you're going to get what you're supposed to get. I couldn't recommend it more. I love this record. Okay, sorry, man, I got hiccups. One thing I would tell you, though, expect an avalanche of Prince releases to come out. Prince was prolific. He had a reputation. I mean, this is old news for me. It's not like I kept it updated, but I remember 10 years ago, I had heard stuff like this guy in his vaults was purported to have written a song a day for his entire life. So expect a lot of new material, and he recorded it all. He's a lot like Frank Zappa when it comes to that. Expect a lot of material from the Paisley Park people. Enjoy your Sunday, man. I'm going to come talk to you folks. Is that cool? Hope you enjoyed it. I'm just trying to shut this off now. You can go now.